Motion friend here. In this video, I'll be showing you how I set up a depth map. As you can see, I have an adjustment layer and I'm applying the camera lens blur effect to it. I'm going to click repeat edge pixels. And I'm going to name this layer camera blur. After that, I'm going to make a new solid and I'm going to apply a gradient ramp to it. I'm going to move the gradient around a bit. You don't have to do that, I'm just going to do it for example. And I'm going to pre-comp my layer. Now when I pre-comp it, I actually clicked the wrong option. I needed to click move all attributes. But what I'm going to do is copy paste it later. I'm going to set the blur map to its own layer just to show you what will happen if you set it up wrong. So if you crank up the radius now, you'll get a weird blur effect. That's not what you want. Next, I'm going to copy the gradient back into the pre-comp like I said I would before. So I'm just going to cut and paste that. There we go, inside of the pre-comp. And now if I go back to my camera blur layer and set the proper blur source, which is the gradient, now you'll get the proper effect. There we go. I'm going to set some keyframes for the start and stop of the blur. So I want it to start at 50 and stop at 0. And I'm going to ease that out. Now you'll get a nice smooth blur. It looks realistic. I'm going to do the same on the other end, but on the other end I'm going to change the blur focal distance so we get more of a tilt shift effect. There we go. So I'm going to do similar, and then I'm just going to set some keyframes for blur focal distance. And you'll see what happens. There we go. So now we got more of a crazy tilt shift effect. And that's what a basic simple gradient can do with the camera lens blur effect. Now you're probably wondering what else you can do. Well, you can actually do a lot of things. You could track an object, for example, and then set up a custom depth map on video, for example. Or you can actually also move stuff around using displacement. The displacement map filter, for example. So in this example, I've tracked this bridge so I can get it separated from the background. And what I want is a bit of a tilt shift effect on the ground, but not on my actual bridge. So what I did was I tracked that using the tracker, just basic tracker. There we go. And then I'll set a gradient on the bottom, and then I'll pre-comp those. So with the gradients, I'm using black to white. So white's the foreground and black's a bit of the background. So when I'm setting this up, I'm using crossfade bokeh just to get the blur. And it's basically the same process as before, and you'll get something a bit like this maybe. You can focus and defocus the background as you want. You can also do things like move stuff around using displacement, which is what I'm doing here. So inside of Photoshop, what I'm doing is making a new layer for each piece and setting rough little pieces of grey to get different effects. So anything close to the camera is white, anything towards the back is sort of like black. And you can see that I'm doing it quite rough here actually. I only need the basic shapes. So as we're going towards the back, I'm just going black. And you can be super rough with those because you're going to blur it anyway. I found the best results if you blur all of this in Photoshop or After Effects afterwards. So we don't want sharp edges, we want a little bit of blur between all these objects. But first things first, we'll just cut everything out and you'll get a bit of an idea of what I'm doing. Mostly I'm just using the lasso or the quick select. There we go. And you can go pretty rough with it. Anyway, if you like this video, don't forget to thumbs up and hit subscribe.